Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the stream today. It's great to see you all here. I am the company's expert, and today we're going to talk about if you've been rejected for a job rejection. We're going to talk about how you probably feel this tall and the emotional situation, and we're going to talk about what's actually going on and what job rejection means and what's going on the other end, the interviewer's end, and what it means. And we're going to talk about what you can do about it. Okay. We're going to cover that all today. So I'm glad you're with me. It's a pretty sensitive topic for a lot of people. And certainly not a fun experience to go through, but that's what we're going to be covering. And like some of you guys know, I do live streams on Sundays and Wednesdays. So welcome to that. On Sundays, I might be moving it into more of a business kind of discussion, depending on what people want. But on Wednesdays, we're definitely going to be talking about employment and hiring. So tune in for that. And these live streams, if you don't know it, these live streams are archived over on my second channel. So if you're not aware that I have a second channel, go to the Company's Expert 2 and subscribe, because that's where these live streams end up. So if you want to watch them over again, or you missed one, that's where they are. And like usual, I'm going to try and keep up with questions. There's a chat, like pretty much every live stream, there's a chat box where you can comment and send in questions. Feel free to comment on other people's comments and other people's things that they're saying. And if you have any questions, just ask them in the chat. I will try and keep up with those. I'll do my best. But if for whatever reason the stream goes too fast and I unfortunately missed your question, if you do a super chat, I will prioritize all the super chats. I'll make sure that I answer them all properly. And the only other part of the public service announcement at the beginning is a shout out to my Patreons and to my YouTube channel members. My YouTube channel members get an extra video from me each week. So if that's something that you're interested in, check that out. And you can do that by clicking the join button on the desktop, if you weren't aware of that. So there we go. So let's dive in. Job rejection. And the title of this is called, If You're Rejected for a Job, Watch This. Okay, because we're going to be talking about it. Not a fun topic at all. In fact, it's one of the bad memories that I have that stick with you a long time. Life is a roller coaster, and you get some highs and you get some lows, and this is definitely one of the lows. And especially if it's been happening repeatedly, if you've been rejected repeatedly. And usually one rejection, two rejections, most people are okay, but if it keeps happening, especially when we're new to the game, you can't help but take it personally, and you start asking questions. What's going on? Why am I being rejected? Why is it such a challenge for me to find employment? Why are interviewers not impressed by my interviewing skills and my background and all this kind of stuff? We're going to talk about that. People feel hopeless. People feel vulnerable, and they naturally have a lot of questions. If this is your first job search, if you're coming right out of school or something like that, and this is your first time you're searching for a job properly, and you're encountering this, you're probably going to take it pretty hard. If you're an old hand at this, if you're a decade or two into your career, or even further, and you've had to jump around and move jobs, and you've been in this situation before, you know what I'm talking about. What further compounds this stuff? There's all kinds of issues that exacerbate it. There's financial issues, there's personal issues, and that stuff doesn't help, and it all contributes to a hell of a lot of stress and a hell of a lot of soul searching and going through some really bad kind of internal stuff. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, nothing like that. I'm just a business guy who can hopefully shed a little bit of light on what's going on the other end of this process, and kind of some things you can do. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from in this. I see we have some people. We have 25 people here. So that's awesome. Thank you for joining me today. It's great to see you here. And we already have some people in the chat. So I think I'm going to look at this one here. So Josh Webb is here. Josh Webb says, thank you. My pleasure. Hey, if this is helping anyone, that's great. And Juan says, do you have any videos for the following question? What are some techniques responding to recruiters who reach you out of the blue? No, I don't think I've done a video on that. That's an interesting question. I don't think anyone's asked me that before. Let's see. Reaching you out of the blue. Well, listen, if they're reaching you out of the blue, meaning that you haven't applied for a job, then chances are that you're employed right now. That's kind of what I'm assuming. But I've been in that situation before. I know a lot of people have. It's actually good. It's actually a desirable situation because if you weren't sort of going on your knees begging them for a job, you're probably in a position where you have some options. You probably have alternatives to getting a job with them, which gives you the upper hand. And if they still try and recruit you despite that, right? That usually says that there could be something good at the end of it. Okay. So other than that, it's the same process, really. I mean, you communicate with them the same way. You do the interviews the same way. Other than sort of being at that usually slightly more advantageous position, throughout the process, there's not really too much difference. And at least in my experience, being in that position. So hopefully that helps. What are the thresholds for rejection compared to the company is still vetting candidates? Well, we're going to talk about that. That's what we're going to talk about. What's going on the other end, why people get rejected, all this kind of stuff. Short answer, and this is for everyone, is that what you need to know, and I know some of you guys know this already, some of you guys, you're maybe just getting into this for the first time, but this process, there's a hell of a lot of random chance involved, okay? You wouldn't know it by the way people act. When you deal with companies that are hiring, when you deal with their representative, whether that's a recruiter or a hiring manager or somebody else, they always project an aura of confidence. They like to project this image of them being in charge, and all the decisions they make are fully informed and very prescient. And the reality is that it's got more to do with random chance than it has to do with anything crafted or calculated. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing because it shows that a lot of the time when you get rejected, it's not a reflection on you. That's something that you need to realize. If you don't know that already, you need to realize that right now. Okay? And I mean, this is evident by the fact that you can get rejected for a bunch of jobs and then you get a job. You get accepted. Now, usually the way that works is you're giving the same presentation. You're giving the same sales pitch for yourself. You have the same background, same experiences, a lot of times the same resume. Your information hasn't changed. Your personal appearance hasn't changed. Your interviewing technique hasn't changed. The way you answer a lot of job interview questions really hasn't changed, but you get a different outcome. You get accepted. Now, is that based on your merits? Well, put it this way. It was the same thing that got you rejected, but now you're getting accepted. So what can we infer here? Well, the only variable that's changed, really, is the organization. It's more dependent on them than it is on you. It depends what they're looking for. And let me tell you, some organizations, what they're looking for is so completely out to lunch, it's ludicrous, okay? So don't feel too bad if they reject you, okay? But we're going to get into that a little bit deeper. So hopefully that makes sense to Juan. Juan, thank you for asking these questions. Radu, I recognize you. You've been in a few of these before. It's good to see you back. Radu Dragan says, companies regularly reject candidates. Don't be afraid to regularly reject companies. Be selective as you can. They certainly are when hiring. Okay, well, yeah, I would agree with that in certain situations, yes. Okay. Just remembering all the time, though, that generally, a good rule of thumb is when you're going, through the hiring process and when you're communicating with organizations, you don't want to have this aura of arrogance and, I'm highly selective, because when you're going in with a bunch of other candidates, your competitors, so to speak, the moment you show like a bit of a hoity-toity attitude, a lot of times they'll just reject you and say, "Nah, I'm not gonna deal with that." Right? So don't get rejected for that. Okay, that's kind of something that's going on. Greg says, I keep interviewing for internal advancement positions that I'm qualified for, but I never get an offer. And most times I see that the position is never filled, nor do they provide feedback. Welcome to the job search process, my friend. You are not alone. In fact, that is an absolutely typical experience. You will very rarely get feedback. And if ever you actually do get feedback, you're pretty much guaranteed it's false. It's a lie. Okay, they're just going to say something for the sake of saying something. Because essentially it's like playing poker and revealing your hand. This is what we actually look for. This is how we actually make these decisions. This is precisely why we rejected you. They don't do that because once that's out in the wild, people can game the system. People can hack their algorithm, as it were, right? So it's based on you as a candidate not knowing precisely what they're looking for, okay? The other thing is that, yes, you are qualified, okay? I remember when I was very young, I was coming out of university or whatever, and, I couldn't understand that. You were qualified for the job, yet you got rejected. Well, the reality is that, a lot of people are qualified for the job from a technical sense, okay? That's usually not the deciding factor. That's the thing that allows you to get an interview. Okay? So if you are qualified for the job, congratulations, that's great. You might be really qualified for the job, okay? The problem is that's not how they determine usually between candidates, right? Because they're talking to usually several people that are fully qualified for the job. They'd all be able to do it, no problem. And they'd all be able to bring unique things to the job. Okay, so that's covered. All the candidates, or at least all their serious candidates, usually have that. What they then do to decide between those candidates boils down to some wishy-washy, new age kind of personal stuff, right? That's how these things work. And, some organizations might be looking for certain personal traits or certain soft skills, certain, communication skills, or certain things in your background, or they just fire a barrage of, job interview questions, those silly questions that are supposed to reveal all kinds of meaningful things about your personality and your hopes and wants and desires and ambitions. But they don't, right? They usually base it on that. And speaking as somebody who's taught HR in universities, who's taught like recruitment and selection, really at the end of the day, it's mostly hocus pocus stuff that doesn't really have any basis on anything real. So it's potluck, okay? It's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of random chance. So this is what's going on, okay? So it's very unfortunate when I see a lot of people, especially young people, the fact that they were rejected, they take it so seriously. It's becomes like, and understandably, it becomes like this thing where they feel they have an inferiority complex now. They feel they are not employable. They are not valuable, and all this kind of stuff. And that's like the wrong conclusion to derive from this. Okay, because that's not what's happening on the other end. Okay, where was I here? So hopefully that makes sense. Now, Greg, you're talking about specifically internal advancement positions. There's a lot of politics in internal advancement positions. Okay, and a lot of how that stuff works. A lot of times is counterintuitive. Okay, the thing about internal advancement position is that if you can picture the hierarchy of an organization, right? You got that more or less pyramid shape, right? Now, if they got a position up here, right, that's vacant, and they're going to replace it with somebody here, right? So this person moves up. Now the vacancy moves down, okay? So they haven't actually filled a position. They've just moved a vacancy around the company, okay? So if it's one of those situations where like sort of everybody moves up, right, by one, they're just transferring that vacancy down to a lower level. And what you're doing is, in the process of moving people around caused by this one vacancy, like maybe 5 people have to move, that's a lot of disruption. That's a lot of learning curve that all these people have to get over. That's a lot of expense, okay? So there's all that going on behind the scenes. They're considering which candidate would be cheaper for the organization when you take all of that into account, okay? That's one aspect of it. But already you can see how being rejected for it or who they choose is no reflection on how qualified you are, okay? There's a lot of other aspects to this. So don't take it to heart. It's not a commentary on your abilities. I'm starting to fall behind in the chat. Jeremy says, "Good day, sir. What about HR managers who don't respond to follow-up emails after a job interview?" Well, they're basically jackasses, and they shouldn't be in that position. That's very common. It's called ghosting, where they're talking to you, and they are your best friend, and they book the interview, and then after the interview, you can't get them on the phone. They won't respond to an email. They never respond to a voicemail. They're gone. That's what's becoming standard in the world of HR, for at least for a lot of bad companies and bad individuals. You just have to expect it. Long story short, you just have to expect it. That's how these people behave, okay? It's unprofessional, it's rude, it's disrespectful, and a lot of people are not expecting it, okay, on top of that. So it's even more of a kind of a thing that I don't want to say anything rude. I'm trying to say a nice, appropriate word, but it's something that you're not expecting, and it's more of a surprise. Let's put it that way, because you're not expecting it. You don't expect this kind of unprofessional behavior from a professional or supposedly professional organization. So expect it. Okay, this is how they're going to operate. Okay, if they don't get back to you, that means they're moving on. Okay, just that's the general rule. Okay. The alternative is for them to tell you that they are rejecting you. And sometimes these people have such little tact and they're so blunt and gruff about it that sometimes you'd almost want to just be ghosted rather than being told point blank, "You're no good," right? At least that's how they deliver it sometimes, which is, once again, unprofessional, right? But generally in the world of business, "I'll get back to you" means I'm never going to get back to you, right? That's how it goes. It's stupid. It's aggravating as hell, especially for introverts or technical people or detail-oriented people who tend to take things literally. These people don't communicate like that. They communicate in little euphemistic phrases, and that's one of them. So just be aware that's how they operate, okay? And expect that. But the great thing is you don't have to play by their rules. You don't have to, get that yes or no at the end. If you don't hear back, you just keep moving on. You keep pursuing opportunities, and you're always focusing on the next opportunity, okay? I know it's easier said than done, but don't dwell on the past, on things that you've already interviewed for, you've already applied for. Once the ball's in their court, your part is done. You keep moving forward, okay, with new things. If you get a bite, great. You will follow up with them as long as they keep contacting you, okay? But that's how this works. It's a numbers game. The more you do, the more likely you will get hired. The quicker you will get hired. Greg says, what should I do differently? Well, I can't answer that, Greg. What I would like to say, there is absolutely nothing. I haven't heard anything from you that, that's any kind of red flag or an improper way to operate and go about doing this. Okay, just keep interviewing for more. I mean, the only thing you can maybe do that helps is you want to understand what's going on the other side. Okay? Now, there might be some obvious things, like you ask your boss, what are you looking for? What are they looking for? Okay, you could ask around. Now, sometimes that can be useful. A lot of times, no one's going to tell you or be honest with you. Or in the meantime, instead of asking directly, you can learn about this stuff. You can learn about HR and how they make their decisions. And being equipped with that, you can make some educated guesses as to what they would look for, what the criteria would be. And experience. The more of this you do, the more you learn. But aside from that, I wouldn't do anything else. As always, just try and improve your interviewing skills, your communication skills as a blanket good thing. But there's really not much else you can do there. So hopefully that makes sense. Pranay Shide, if I'm saying that, says, I got rejected because I'm overqualified, and she said I'm the best candidate. The recruiter said to look out for a senior position. They say a lot of things. They open their mouth and they say a lot of nice things. The problem is that, like most of these people, because they believe that they're engaged in a euphemism, that gives them open license to literally lie. Okay? So they'll say all kinds of pleasant things to kind of take away from the fact that they're not calling you back. Okay, now I wish you all the luck in the world, but usually that's what that means. Okay? The other thing is that then we get into the whole overqualified thing, which is something I'd have to explain. Check out being overqualified, like it is an actual legitimate thing. You and I both know that just because you're technically a little overqualified for the demands of the role, that doesn't mean that you don't want the role. It doesn't mean you wouldn't stay in the role. It doesn't mean you wouldn't be happy with the role. The problem is that statistically, people who are overqualified, meaning that they have all kinds of education and experience that is far and above what's necessary, statistically, those people have a higher risk of leaving. If they get hired for the job and offered the job, they might accept it, but they statistically stay for a shorter time, much shorter. Okay? So that's what these people are going on. They're judging you by statistics, probabilities. They're judging you by stereotypes, by archetypes, by first impressions. Sometimes they're just prejudiced against or for different things randomly. It's a numbers game, okay? Don't think too much about it and why it didn't work out. They just were looking for a specific thing. They're looking for somebody that was over 6'5". They didn't disclose this, but you didn't get it. It's not a reflection on you, right? The next position, they'll be looking for somebody precisely like you for an equally silly reason. But you get that one, right? And they're enthusiastic about hiring you. Oh, I'm falling further behind. I really have to pick up the pace here. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, solemn. I got a lot of companies that say degree required in blank. How often in your experience are they open to candidates with no degree but a lot of experience in the field? Can they compete with graduates? Yes, that does happen. And it happens a lot. But you get all kinds. You get some companies that are rigid on the whole qualification thing. And it depends, obviously, what position you're up for. If you're trying to get a job as a heart surgeon, I mean, they need a medical degree. There's just no way around it, obviously, right? But a lot of other things, you know, especially when it's not a profession and you don't have to have a certification or a license to practice by law in that role, yeah, there's ways around it. We're going to get into that later. If you regularly watch my channel, I tell you exactly kind of how to put yourself forward and overcome a perceived weakness like that. Okay, it's basically by contacting them proactively. Radu again. Sometimes the reason for rejection isn't even you. You know, I'd say 90% of the times it isn't even you. I have personally gone through 4 interviews to obtain a job only to have the employer reclassify the position. Yeah, and they also play stupid games. They have a position that's open forever and they're always interviewing, but they never hire people. There's several reasons for that. Some of them are less than wholesome. Pranay says, is it a possibility that I worked for a small business which had no more than 20 to 30 employees? Does previous company matter apart from the role and skills I possess? Yes, it does. It does. Not all the time, but a lot of times it does, depending on your industry and your role and your level, okay? And I know what you're talking about. I've been in that situation. I've worked for blue chip companies and I've worked for like startups, okay? So the thing is, if your previous employment is in a very small company that they can't verify, okay, they've never heard of the company, it's hard to get information. I mean, oh sure, there might be a website, but you know, that can be an issue under some circumstances. Other times, if your previous employer was a company they're familiar with, that has a good reputation, they're big, they're profitable, they've been around for a long time, they know what they're doing, everybody respects them, then you benefit from that brand equity, basically. Okay, you are associated with that company. They go, oh, okay, so you're legitimate. You worked there, right? Somebody says, oh, I worked for one of the big 4 accounting firms, you know, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And people go, oh, okay, well, that's legitimate. Somebody says, I worked for IBM. You go, oh, okay, that's legitimate. You must know your stuff. IBM knows what they're doing, and they hire a lot of highly talented people, so you must know what you're doing. Right? It's silly. Maybe you don't have a clue what you're doing. Maybe you got hired on a technicality, or you know, you got hired by some individual a week before they quit, and they just hired random people to screw up the people that was taken over from them. It doesn't hold any water, but it's, as I said, people go on probabilities and all this fuzzy logic, you know. So, yeah, you know. So the thing is, if this is a problem for you, you worked at a small company and it's turning out to be a bit of a drawback, you know, having references at this small company where they maybe can't verify it, they're not aware of it. You know, you're eventually, if you keep applying, you're going to find a place that doesn't care about that. Maybe they are a small company. The last thing in the world is they're going to be biased against is small companies. They actually might regard that as an advantage. Great, you're in a small company. That means you're not a process-focused person. You care about results, and you don't, need like some weird corporate framework to do your job. You can just get things done. That's perfect. Right? So you look for them. Hi, Bill. A very quick question. Should I be worried if I've been selected for a job where I ask for a certain amount of money, but they have offered me that amount plus 10K to motivate me? Should you be worried? No, that's not a red flag. That does happen. It depends what the pay grade is, right? Or it depends how much value they feel you have. And that's something that's entirely in their mind. Okay, so that alone, no, that's not a red flag. Now, if there's a bunch of other things they're doing that are red flags, then you would deal with those. But nope, that's perfectly fine. Who We Are says, if there are 6 candidates selected for interview, is it good to be interviewed first? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Sometimes, if you could pick your position, it may be good to interview last. But I've seen everything. You know, if you go first, you take advantage of the fact that they might make a decision early on. If you go last, then you're the person that has the strongest impression in their head when they go off to make a decision afterwards. So, I mean, you know, you don't know what you're dealing with. It doesn't matter. Unless you know precisely how they make their decisions, you can't predict these things. Random chance. When we are in the same position, we'll be going through same company hierarchy of rejecting. HR team must at least show courtesy to reply back to staff even if rejected. Okay, I think you're helping somebody else there. Ray says, can your qualification PA threaten to the hiring manager? Like, look, don't use acronyms because I don't understand what acronyms. I mean, what's a PA? Public accountant? Like, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Yeah, you know, your qualifications may be a threat to the hiring manager. That has been known. That signals a bad hiring manager. That signals somebody who I wouldn't hire to be in that role, right? I mean, if they think their subordinate is a threat to them, I mean, quite frankly, that kind of petty political crap is not good for the organization. So, but yeah, you do see that. You do see a lot of bad hiring managers because there's a lot of bad managers out there. Be good enough in future to interview the same interviewer who rejected you once? Usually no. No. All things being equal, if they rejected you once, they will probably reject you again. I mean, look, everything is going to happen some of the time, right? So it takes all kinds. Sometimes you get rejected once, then you come back, and you might even be at an advantage. They feel bad about rejecting you the first time, they hire you the second time. I mean, you know, you will encounter that sometimes, but you will also encounter the opposite a lot, okay? Usually, if you get rejected for a job once and then you reapply later, they still reject you. Okay, but as I say, I mean, we see everything. Does it help at all to present yourself socially, building rapport with the interviewer instead of focusing on presenting your technical qualifications? Oh, yes, definitely. But there's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that. Like I say this almost every video or every live stream I do, 75% of people who get jobs get it through networking. They don't get it by applying to a job ad that's posted publicly and then going and interviewing with a recruiter. Okay? They get it through networking. And networking does not mean networking with a recruiter. Networking means networking with a hiring manager. The hiring manager knows you. Okay, the boss, they know you. Now, you know this is coming, but for those of you that this is like new and you don't know, do your own research on this. Okay, networking is very important. If you're not trying to get a job through networking, especially if you feel like that you're at some kind of disadvantage, like some of the people that have left comments, check out networking. Okay, because networking, if you do it right, it can overcome a lot of things that a recruiter would perceive as a weakness, but you can negate that by getting the job through networking. Okay. Now, do your own research on this. Don't take my word for it. Okay. Do your own research. I have a course. Okay. This is the course right here. It takes you through multiple ways of getting a job. The standard way of getting a job, doing job interviews, all that. But it also covers networking, and I give you a sort of unique way of doing networking also, and some other slightly more advanced ways of getting jobs too, if that's of any use to you. Okay, link in the description if you are interested. But no pressure. But yes, like people, for example, that are changing careers, people that have big work gaps, people that are not very good, that are not very impressive in a job interview, but they have tremendous technical skills. Okay, those types of, I don't want to call them weaknesses because they're not real weaknesses. They're, slight disadvantages. A recruiter will eliminate you for a lot of that stuff, but we all know that you can do the job and you can excel at the job too. So usually the way of equalizing everything and overcoming those is to get the job through networking. You change the rules of the game. They hire you not because of your resume. They hire you because they've approached you, they like you, they are impressed by your professionalism, your manners, your initiative, and they give you a chance based on that, not from your job application, right? That's how networking works. Candidates are risky. Hiring a stranger is risky. You don't know who this person is. They could be an axe murderer. They could be crazy. They could be a criminal. They could be, they could have all kinds of personal problems. They could be suicidal. You have no idea who this person really is. So if the boss who ultimately needs the employee knows you, that immediately lets you jump to the top of the list. They will look at you first. Now, you don't have to know a bunch of people, okay? I'm not going to spend this live stream talking about this, but I'll just say this. You don't have to know a bunch of people. You can contact them proactively. And if you're an introvert, you could do it all on social networking. You don't have to have a single phone call or a single face-to-face meeting. You don't have to go to a single job fair or networking event. Okay, so don't freak out thinking that, I just have to know 1,000 people. You don't. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. Check out my channel if you want to get deeper into that. Check out my course if you want to really go deep. But we're not really talking about that today. Where did I leave off here? Thank you, Jeremy. That's very nice of you to say. And you're welcome, Greg. I'm glad that helped. What should we say when asked on an interview how much we currently make? Should we answer honestly? Can we politely decline to answer the question? Check out my video. Go to, in the YouTube search box, type in the company's expert and then the salary question. Okay, because I answer that in a video. Indeed, the most companies don't look for the most experienced employees. It has a lot of different factors involved when an employer is trying to fill a position. I got 4 out of 5 job offers for my profession. Yeah. Yeah, like if they are looking for a janitor to sweep the floors, they're not, just because somebody has a PhD, that doesn't mean that they're going to be the one selected, right? the PhD, the way recruiters think, the PhD makes them a high-risk candidate. Because if they hire the PhD to sweep the floors, chances are the PhD is not going to be happy in that role. They're only taking the job because they're desperate for money. And as soon as they get the job, they're going to try as hard as they possibly can to get a different job that uses more of their skills and pays better. And it's likely that they will get it. Their heart's not going to be in this. They won't appreciate this job. They won't care. So that makes the PhD, unintuitively, a higher risk candidate. They're not going to pick that person. That's how recruiters think. Okay, they're playing off, as I said, probabilities, stereotypes, assumptions, that kind of stuff. Rob says, what is the proper answer for your college GPA for an online application? I don't know, your actual GPA, maybe? Like, why would you not disclose it if they need you to disclose it? Especially if you went to college over 20 years ago. This is an example of, they're basing their decision on criteria that might be out to lunch. Right? I'm inferring that there's a good chance that either you're applying for something that, is more like they're not looking for a lot of experience, like it's for people coming right out of school. That's the only time anybody really cares about your GPA is when you're getting a job right out of school. Once you've got your first career job, you've been in that job for 3 years or something, nobody else after that cares about what your GPA was in school most of the time. Okay, generally that's how it goes. Okay? Your job experience is much more telling than how you did at school, right? The fact that somebody hired you out of school, that tells them all they need to know. And the fact that you stayed in that job for, say, 3 years, obviously they didn't fire you. You worked out, right? So that's all that matters. That's what they're checking for. Okay? Now, if they're looking for someone who's got 20 years experience, but they still want to know your GPA, I would think that they just don't have the foggiest idea what they're doing. That's kind of the impression I'm left with. Kirishima says, I'm 50. I've been a project and program manager for 20 years. 2 years ago, I was made redundant, and I have had 13 second interviews at that time, landing 0 job offers. Any advice? Gratefully received. Listen, without knowing any details, my guess, if I had to guess, I'd say you probably have some experience and some skills that are very impressive. That's why you're getting second interviews. Okay? But and these are things that they can see immediately from your resume, right? Before you even go to an interview, they can tell what your experiences are and skills are and qualifications are. That's all in your resume. Okay, so that gets you the interview. If you can't, you're probably not making obvious mistakes in an interview because they're calling you back for a second interview. What may be going on there, if I'm just guessing, is that perhaps they are concerned about perhaps a lack of a certain type of experience, or there's something to do with your maybe a personal issue, or a personality trait that they have decided that they are not sure if they want that. A lot of those type of situations, like I've said, if you find that keeps happening, okay, you're getting interviews, but nobody's selecting you, okay, I would check out networking if you're not doing it, okay, because whatever issue is preventing them, it's something that's subtle. It's not obvious. and it's not obviously a deal breaker. Okay, that's the kind of thing that networking can usually solve. Okay, so if it were me, I would make sure that you're doing that. I can't think of any other advice just based on that. It's too general, but hopefully that helps. Maria has a very long name. Good morning, teacher. Good morning. The biggest problem here in Colombia is the age. Here, they just want to hire young people. Listen, generally what we see is that some industries, some roles, they only want young people. Other industries, other roles, they only want old people. And other industries, other roles, they only want middle-aged people. Okay? So it depends what you're going for. Okay? If you're trying to get a job, say, I don't know, like as a waitress or something, something that requires youthful looks or something like this, yes, it's going to be totally biased towards young people. But other jobs, they're biased towards older people, that jobs that need more decision-making abilities, more experience, things like this. So look for those type of jobs, okay? Like if every job you're looking for, they only want young people, I can tell you're not looking at like all the jobs that are out there, okay? I'm not in Colombia myself, okay? So maybe I just don't understand the culture there, but I mean, I've heard that before, and that's usually what the problem is. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And once again, that is something else that possibly you can get around through networking if you're not being selected when you go in as a stranger, like as someone they don't have any personal connection to. Rob says the GPA question is on director and vice president positions. Okay, that's interesting. It's still, I mean, I'm surprised they're asking you for that, but I mean, it still doesn't affect the answer to the question. Like, how should you answer it? I would just go and see if you can find your old transcript or something and get your GPA and just give it to them. I don't know why they would want that. Is it maybe to verify your education or something, perhaps? Yeah, I mean, it depends in what. Like, if you're a director and, you're at a director level in an organization or higher, and, you've got like an MBA or something, and they want to see how you did as maybe part of the criteria, maybe that might make sense. If you've come from a very reputable school, you went to Harvard or some Ivy League thing or something, and, they want to know if you're like a sort of 2.0 type person or a 4.0 type person, conceivably. But other than that, I still think it's kind of silly. So just give it to them. Don't lie. If you can find it, give it to them. And you said earlier that it was on an application, so I'm assuming that maybe you can't submit it because that field requires an answer, right? So it's a mandatory field. Maria says, company want people until 45 years old. Yeah, unless you're some kind of manager, But I stand by what I say. I mean, some jobs, they need experience. They need older people. Those jobs generally are a little bit higher up, but that's how those go. Not a problem, Rob. I hope that was somewhat helpful. Niels Rademacher. Is there a certain length of staying at a job that employers see as ideal? Do they prefer if you stayed at each job 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Well, yes, but it depends on the job, on the industry, and all that. Up until 2020, there were some general rules about that stuff. Since 2020, the playbook has changed somewhat. So I could tell you kind of how it worked up until 2019. But after 2020, a lot of those, they've changed in a good way. People are generally a little more understanding of work gaps and length of employment. And the trend was people's average length of employment has been decreasing steadily, like since the 1970s. So I think it's got to the point where you could work for 2 years at places. And most of the time, that's not going to be much of a problem. The flip side of that is that now they have less desire to train people. So they're wanting you to start and get up and running very quickly. Okay, they're looking for employees that don't need any training, don't need any onboarding or learning curve. They want people that can start, like say within 1 week, you're productive. So that's kind of the flip side of that. But it varies. If you work in government, they tend to have long lengths of employment. They tend to train you more, and they're less picky about that stuff. So I mean, it depends on the industry. I know that's kind of an unhelpful answer, but that's just how it goes. It varies. In your opinion, is it too late to make a career switch at 35? Certainly not. Certainly not. It is not. And I'm living proof of that. It's never too old for a career change. But whenever you're changing careers, the one rule is you can't go through recruiters, because recruiters, their standard metric is years of experience. And if you're changing careers, by definition, you have 0 years experience in the career that you're moving to. So that kind of eliminates you out of the way they assess people, right? So you overcome that with things like networking and other alternate ways of getting a job, okay? You can't just apply for job ads, changing careers, and do it. And it depends what industry. Like, if you're 35 and you're trying to get into IT and things like this, that can be more of a problem. If you're 35 and you're trying to move from managing, logistics and supply chain to managing manufacturing or something, I mean, that's not an issue at all. So it really depends what you're doing. This live stream got me into podcasts. Good, I think, right? Oh, that's good. Imogen kind of sort of confirming that, I think. Yeah. So anyway, coming back to the original premise here, the original topic, okay? It's about job rejection, okay? And, the thing is that, like, I've seen this from both sides. I've seen it from early in my career as sort of the job seeker, and then later in my career as the hiring manager. The thing that a lot of people are not aware of is just how error-prone and imprecise hiring is. It really is a lot of hocus pocus. I've mentioned this before, but they did a study. I think it was like Harvard or something. They did a study, one of those Ivy League American universities. Some professor several years back did a study where he got a grant for this, and they had sort of two groups. They were hiring at a company, and they were hiring for like 2 positions, and they set this up as sort of a control experiment. And one position they filled practically at random. Okay, so people applied for that position, and they, like, I don't know what exactly they did, but it was like almost rolling a dice, supposedly, who they hired. They just hired that person. The other position, they hired like the most expensive management consulting firm in New York to come in and consult and say, like, put the candidates through all the psychometrics and all the background checks and the reference checks and like all the, the aptitude tests and all that kind of stuff, right? And then make recommendations based on that data. And so you had these 2 candidates, and then they measured the performance of those 2 candidates for like the next 6 months or something to see who was a better candidate, who was the better choice. And the person that was recommended by the HR consulting firm, they were better, but it was by an extremely thin margin. It was like 3% performance difference, something like that. So the person that they picked more or less completely randomly, of all the applicants, they just sort of like blindfolded, they just picked a resume out of the... That person was like 97% as effective as the person that was, they put all that effort and resources and money into selecting. Right? So, it shows you, it's one of the furthest things from an exact science that we have. A lot of stuff in HR is like that. And I'm not talking about the theories of, what you can do if you bring like sort of space age resources to it. I'm talking about the way it's done in the real world. They've done so many studies on this stuff, and they found that it's almost completely ineffective. Recruitment and selection is almost completely ineffective. Things like performance evaluations are almost completely ineffective. There's several things like that. Okay. So if you don't get selected for a job, that tells you right off, it is no reflection on you, and it has no bearing on how qualified you are. On top of that, recruiters and organizations in general, they like to have what they feel is a unique criteria for how they select people. And so they come up with all kinds of crazy stuff that doesn't make sense. They hire people for their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, other things like that have no bearing on anything really. It's just the preference of the employer. Personality traits. And the other thing is that if you're not a great communicator or you don't have a lot of charisma, you're at a disadvantage. If there's one thing that I'd recommend people do to do better in job interviews is work on your communication skills and try and be more likable. Because generally, what we see is they hire the candidate that interviewer just happens to like the best. It's the most unscientific thing ever, and it produces bad results a lot of times. You get some people that can charm the pants off an interviewer, but then they can't do the job. We see that a lot. That's where things like I said earlier, like networking and then other ways, they can work for you. Personally, I started as a technical person. I had a degree in engineering and I applied for technical jobs and things like this. And I was completely oblivious to all that stuff, all the soft skills, communication skills, all that kind. That was not even on my radar. I didn't even think of that stuff. Now, like 30 years later, you realize that's almost the only thing that matters. Your resume gets you the interview. Once you are offered a job interview and they ask you to come down, that's when your resume kind of no longer matters. Now that you're being judged on your performance in an interview, your interviewing skills, how charismatic you are, what your communication skills are like, and then certain random traits that they think are good that varies by each organization you go to. So yeah, that's the thing. It's so silly. They'll hire people for technical positions based on non-technical criteria. It's ridiculous. This is what we see most of the time. Not just sometimes, but most of the time. JT does stuffs. Hello, it's me again. Good morning from India. Good morning. Good morning, India. Right? I'm not playing the capital game this time, right? It's New Delhi, right, for India. About to think, sir, what's your opinion about getting a job immediately after high school or to try to get a certificate in university? Like you're trying to decide between the two? Here's what I would say. Get university if you can, if you have the opportunity, but get something legitimate. There's a lot of things you can get in university that, they're worthless, basically. Okay? And universities, increasingly, they're behaving more like businesses. They're trying to get more customers, meaning more students. So one of the things that they tell their prospective students is that this certification, this qualification that you're getting, it will be very valuable for you. It'll open all kinds of doors for you. It's recognized, it's valued in the industry. They'll tell you all kinds of stuff like that. Now, sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's not. Don't get fooled, okay, by that marketing hype. Do your own research ahead of time to see how valuable their certification actually is. Okay, for example, go on LinkedIn, and after jumping through a few hoops, you can do a people search for certain job positions in your hometown. If you have an ambition of being in a certain job, go on LinkedIn, look at the individuals that are currently in that job. See what educational credentials they have. And if they all have the same thing, that strongly suggests that that thing is kind of what you need to get if you want to be in that job. If they all don't have any educational qualifications, or they all have different ones, that tells you something else. So this is the kind of research you can do. But if you don't go to university when you're young, for a lot of people, they never have, it's never as easy to go to university as it is then. It's very hard going back to university when you're in your 30s, right? So if you have the opportunity of getting an actually valuable university degree or something, I would say go for it. That would be my position on that. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, not a problem, RG7, if I'm saying that. Right? If you say it like that. Is that how you pronounce your name? RG7. No problem. It's hard to spot talent. It really is. I mean, the thing is, the way people spot talent when they're really putting effort into it. Okay, when you look at executive recruiters, they actually need to find the right person. They don't need like somebody that can do the job, and who's going to stay there and follow rules. They need like an actually talented person who has all the right experience, all the right the judgment skills, etc. What they do is they essentially get to know that person. They put a lot of time into it. They have a lot of long interviews. You will have informal interviews. You'll go out for coffee with the hiring manager. You'll go have dinner with the hiring manager. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get to know you as a person. Now, if you do that, you stand more of a chance of making a somewhat accurate appraisal of that person. But the problem is that's only for the highest level jobs. For most jobs, they meet you for one interview, maybe two interviews, and then they have to make a decision. And the problem is job interviews are extremely artificial. They're like, nobody is truthful. The recruiter is totally not truthful. Candidates are very, very guarded. They're not being honest. They're being very guarded, very watchful of what they say. They're usually well rehearsed with canned answers that sound really good rather than giving you honest answers. So you put all that together, it's very, very hard to actually see who these people are. It really is. And so the result is you, a lot of times, hire the wrong person. And that's evident by more HR data that we've gotten over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We've seen how, the selections that people have made when they hire people, they're not the right choices. These people don't work out for various reasons. Even applying the latest thinking, right? It still hasn't really shown a boost in effectiveness of the hiring choices. For example, people are very biased. We tend to hire in our own image. So if I'm an extrovert and I'm interviewing candidates, I'll like the candidates that are extroverts. I'll think, oh yeah, they would be good. But the introverts, I don't think they're as good, right? If I have a degree in science, I have a bachelor degree in science, natural science, whatever, biology, and I'm interviewing for a position that, you could, as long as you have a university degree, you'd be okay in the job, I guess. The candidates that have a degree in science, I'll tend to like them more because I place more value on a degree in science because I have a degrey in science. Right? We place more value on things that we have. We're totally biased like that. Everybody's biased. I'm biased. You are all biased. They've done all kinds of studies on this. That's normal human behavior, right? We're also biased towards people that are like us. Okay, if you are, you have a great sense of humor and you're always injecting humor into everything you do, and laughing and joking with all the people around you, that endears you to some people. But maybe you are up for a job where the hiring manager is very serious, ex-military, something like that. No nonsense. And you start making jokes in the interview, they don't see the value of that, right? They don't appreciate that because that's not like them, right? So that alone is a real issue. People hire people that agree with them. Right? Really smart people do that. And then they run into the pitfalls of that, where they have a bunch of sycophants and you have groupthink and you make horrible business decisions. And because everybody else that you've hired is just a mirror of you, nobody catches that bad decision until it blows up right in your face. Right? There's like many sort of business case. I'd love to get into that. I'd love to do a show just on that. But I mean, these are some of the factors that are going on here, and it's really not like discrimination. It's not really bias. I mean, it's just human nature. A lot of this stuff. It's about your opinions, your decision-making process, your communication style. Things like this, your background, right? If you're hiring a manager to run a warehouse, what qualification should they have? Somebody could have 20 years in working in a warehouse, driving a forklift. Another person could be an IT expert. They know the inventory system and the ERP system really well. Somebody could be an accountant. They understand all the cost structure of everything. Somebody could be a great people person, like a people manager, able to motivate people and supervise people and get them to really be productive. Someone could be an efficiency expert. They've got Lean, they've got Six Sigma, they've got TQM, they've got operations management. What skills would you need? Well, if you're the hiring manager and you happen to be an accountant, guess which one you're going to hire? It'll probably be the accountant, right? And then the person who was the efficiency expert, who knows how to walk into a warehouse and make it 3 times more efficient for half the price. They're thinking like, what the hell did I do wrong? I was qualified for that. I'd be able to excel in that role. But they chose somebody else. What's wrong with me? And then they feel all the emotional dimension of this, right? And they get an inferiority complex. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that the person you were interviewing with happened to be an accountant. They liked the accountant. They saw value in somebody's accounting abilities. And because they don't even understand what you have, they didn't see as much value in it. These are kind of the factors that we're up against. And then next thing you know, you get an organization all run by accountants. I worked for one of those. It was called General Motors. Their CEO is an accountant who had never worked outside of that company in their entire career. And do you guys know what happened to General Motors? Like, what is it, 14 years ago? They went bankrupt. And then they got bailed out by the American government. And that was the thing where did you ever see that? The CEO flies in his private jet to Washington, D.C. to talk to, what is it? I'm not American. Like, is it the Senate or the House of Representatives? To beg for more money. He flies in his private jet to say, we need more money. We're out of money. Right? How stupid can you be? I worked for that company for a few years, and that's what I saw. I saw a lot of odd things going on. I don't know if it's still like that. I don't know. But coincidence, a lot of accountants running that company. So this is a real effect, okay? And people walk into this all unsuspecting like, and you think it's because of your abilities that we're not good enough. Wrong. You are very hireable. You are very valuable. You're very talented. It's funny because a lot of times you get to look back. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about people in general. I've seen a lot of people do this. They were rejected for a job that they felt that they were qualified for. And then they see who was hired for it, who was selected instead of them. And then you see them fail miserably in that role because that company made the wrong decision. That happens a lot. If you have any experiences like that, share those in the chat. Because that happens a lot. That cheers people up when you hear that, because it's true. That happens every day. Time for some Red Bull. Melkoyan. Tomorrow, super important interview. Wish me luck. Good luck. Good luck. I wish you the best. Touch of Fairy. I dropped college and sick for long. You were sick for... It made you drop college? That's unfortunate. Heidi. Does a recruiter appreciate when a candidate creates a deck for the interview without being asked to create a presentation? They can be. It can go both ways. It depends on what they place value on. One outcome is that, yes, they appreciate your dedication, your organization, and your professionalism, and your ability to go the extra mile, and the fact that you're taking it seriously. That's one possible outcome. Another possible outcome is that they think, like, you just don't get how this works. That's not necessary. Okay? And that could be a red flag because maybe you misread other situations if they hired you. I know it sounds stupid. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So take your best shot, okay? And you learn from experience, and that can help inform you of what to do in the future. Now, here's the thing, okay? As I've said often, it's very hard to elevate yourself above a crowd if you're doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, right? So I like people that kind of do slightly unconventional things, but are still intelligent and effective. Okay, I like that. But I mean, I'm a private sector kind of guy, and I'm a startup kind of guy. And I mean, those people are highly capable. The problem is that the situation you're in, if you're dealing with a recruiter, especially in a large organization, is that in that environment, they care more about following rules, following procedure, right? They try their best to make it as level a playing field as possible. They might even structure their interviews where they ask the same questions to all candidates, and then they get everybody's response and they write that down. Like they're taking any possibility of you showing originality and out of the box thinking, creativity. They intentionally try and take that out of the equation. They want to be able to look at everybody and compare apples to apples. Now, does that filter out the creative, innovative people? Of course it does. Of course it does. You end up with a bunch of followers when you hire like that. But that a lot of times does describe large organizations. Right? So that approach will work if you're playing to the right crowd. If you're playing to a crowd that doesn't appreciate that, it won't work. It'll be perceived as a red flag. So that's the problem. And if you don't know, you take your best shot. You see what I'm saying? That approach is not right or wrong. It depends on who it's for, right? And that's how the world works. That's how the real world works. Heidi says, thank you for your amazing tips. I watched all your interview videos today for my interview preparation tomorrow. Well, best of luck, Heidi. I wish you all the best. And however it goes, I hope it goes great. But even if it doesn't, it's not a reflection on you. Okay? You don't have to change who you are. You may have to change your approach to getting a job based on what people are looking for. But that's it. You're a highly valuable, highly capable person. The fact that you said you were going to do a pitch deck or a presentation in a job interview when they didn't ask you to do it, I think that says it all. Mark Brown says, approaching 50, been out of corporate for a while, got a first interview, one of the big four for a manager role. I have experience but want to feel confident. Any advice? Listen, full disclosure, I've never worked for any of the big four, and I'm not an accountant or a corporate lawyer. So exactly what their culture requires, I'm not sure. I know they're very conservative. I know they respect seniority, they respect experience, and they respect education. So, that's sort of the sum total of my knowledge of how the big four hire. The only advice I would have is sort of the generic advice that says, like, look, if you have experience and if you have management experience, make sure that you communicate very clearly to them that you have the specific things that they were looking for, okay? What they have placed value on. Some of that is disclosed in the job requirements. Some of it's hidden. They won't disclose what they look at. But some of it, they've already told you in the job description, we're looking for this. Make sure you communicate very clearly to them that you have those, or, that none of those are a problem. And to back it up, use examples that they can relate to, okay? So if you're talking about being a manager, let's say you're a manager in an accounting environment, okay? Hypothetically. When they ask you, like, do you have experience managing people? And can you give me examples of how you've managed people? Use examples that are the closest to their type of business as possible, okay? That's the only real thing I could say. Because they tend to be conservative. They tend to not want to accommodate individuality. They want people to be assimilated into their culture. From what I know of them and what I've been told about how it works on the inside, that's kind of my understanding. So that's what I would do if it were me. If this is a really big deal and you really need to know, I would go on LinkedIn. I would contact people in the big four, like the other companies, the ones you're not being interviewed for, and try to get an informational interview, with one or two or three or four of them, and ask them, like, what do they place value on? If I was gonna interview, what would you hire? What would you place value on? Things like this, to try and get that insider information, to really learn their culture. Okay. That's what I would do if it was really important. ASIM Iqbal says, I just graduated with my bachelor's in accounting. I got an offer for a full charge bookkeeping position. The interview went well because I didn't know QuickBooks. The interview went well because I didn't know QuickBooks? Okay. Was it a good idea to tell them I'll be an intern rather than the bookkeeping position I applied for? I don't fully understand the situation you're kind of setting up here. You got an offer for a bookkeeper position. The interview went well, but you didn't know QuickBooks. Should you tell them you'll be an intern rather than the bookkeeping position? I can't figure that one out. I don't understand what you're trying to ask. Juan says, very valuable content. Thank you for doing this. Not a problem, Juan. I'm flattered you're here listening. I want to say thanks to your short videos and lots of rejections. I just accepted an offer for assistant winemaker. Turned in 20 applications, only 4 interviewed me, rest rejected me, 1 offered. Yeah, that's roughly kind of the ratios we're seeing, right? If you're applying online, it tends to be more than 20. It can be up to 100 or more to get 4 interviews. But congratulations. That's great. That's great news. Thanks for your videos. Despite my consistent failure in securing employment, I do find your optimism keeps my head above water. Listen. You're very valuable, okay? You're professional. You can certainly contribute to an employer, okay? In addition, you can also find success going on your own, starting your own business entity of some kind. I mean, even like a YouTube channel or something as an example of what I'm talking about. Very low cost, easy to start, but you can make money. I mean, some people find their position working as an employee for an employer. Other people find their fit in life being on their own, having their own business. There's a place for you. You're highly competent. It's just you got to go through this dog and pony show of getting hired. It's all fluff. It's all just hot air and people who don't know what they're doing that pretend that they do. You just got to navigate that. It's a totally different thing to being qualified for a job. Right? I think a lot of people realize that it's being qualified for a job is one thing. This is something else. This is like how to get hired. That's a completely different thing. In a perfect world, they would be one and the same. Who's the most qualified gets the job, right? Maybe that's how it should work. But that's not how the world does work. Whoever succeeds at this process gets hired. Now what I like about this, what I think personally is the ray of hope for a lot of people, okay, is the fact that you don't have to play by the rules. That's the great thing about this. You don't have to get a job through a recruiter, go through interviews. I've heard a lot of horror stories also from students I've taught. The students I taught tended to be in their 20s. And they were looking for career jobs. They were either looking for part-time jobs while they were in school, or they were looking for career jobs because they were about to graduate. And, they all said kind of the same thing. They said like, I don't like applying for a job where I don't know, I'm a stranger and they're strangers to me. And when I say stuff that I have, they don't believe me. I've experienced that personally too. You say I have this accomplishment, I did this, and they don't seem to believe you. Or you tell them this amazing thing that you've accomplished and they don't see any value in that. And it's like, are you insane? I mean, this is something that's not easy to achieve. It's something that's directly applicable to the role. It's something I can bring to this role, that would really help the organization. It would, and you don't know what it is, or you don't see why it's good. Like, are you kidding me? But people get that a lot, I keep losing where I am in this in this stream. I have to highlight the comment. Highlight the comment. That's what I got to remember. So Kirishima, I'm glad I can help a little bit, I guess. But just keep trying. Just, look, you've got to take care of your mental health too. That's the other part that people often forget, okay? Like, if you're just depressed, about this, getting rejected multiple times and it feels hopeless. It isn't hopeless, but it feels hopeless. Just maybe take a moment to do something that's somewhat fun. I know you can't have fun, you're not the right place, but you've got to take care of yourself, okay? Just take a moment. Watch, I don't know if you can watch like a TV show or go play a sport or whatever you're into. Just do a little bit of that for like maybe one day or even half a day, because that's very important too. Okay. Now, if you're doing one technique and it's just been failure after failure after failure, it hasn't gone anywhere, don't be super stubborn. Like check out other ways of getting employed, okay, getting hired. There's multiple ways. If you're really stuck, you don't know where to start, I've got that course, right? Where is it? Here. Okay, so link in description. If you're, if you're just absolutely, you don't know where to get information or what's good, I have that might be of help to some people. I know it's been of help to a lot of people, but it's not necessarily the solution for everyone. Taking a paid course. Okay, but my point is, like, don't just keep trying the same thing over and over again forever and only doing that one thing if all you've got so far is failure. Try a variety of methods to get a job. Okay, that's important too. And just like we were talking about a second ago, the job search process, the hiring process, that also is something that you can make your own. You could do it your way. Like I said, a common thing, and I know this from dealing with 20-something students, is that they just don't want to have a phone call, right, with people. They don't want to meet anyone. They don't want to have a phone call. So yes, you could do the entire thing just on the computer, okay, on social networking. Not only do you look at job ads and send out applications, you do the networking thing on the computer. Okay, that's very popular. I've built a consulting business just doing that. So that's something too, okay? And like, for example, some of the other things you can do, this is not something I recommend for everyone, but in the days before 2020, I recommended this to a lot of students, and some people did it and got jobs. It's like, you just walk into the company. I talked about that last live stream I did. You walk through the front door of the company. You got your resume and print up a business card, like for $5 or some small amount of. You could print a bunch of business cards. They say your name. They say what you do. Engineer or accountant or technician or forklift, driver, whatever. And they have your contact information. And maybe even a little picture of you, your face, your headshot. Okay. And you walk through the front door of the company and you get to a reception desk. And if you know that they're hiring for a role, or you don't even know if they're hiring for a role, or you don't care if they're hiring for a role, you'd like to work there in a certain role. You walk in and you say to the receptionist, just, "Hi, it's great to meet you. Would I be able to speak with the manager for this department?" And maybe they're available, but 90% of the time, the answer is going to be no. Sorry, they're unavailable right now. You say, okay, not a problem. Listen, if I leave this with you, and it's like your resume and a business card, if I leave this with you, could you pass it on to them? Would that be possible? And 90% of the time, they'll say, sure, yeah, no problem. You say, okay, great. Could I, what is their name? Just so I know. And they'll say, 90% of the times, they'll tell you their name. Oh, that would be John or John Smith, whatever, from this department. Say, okay, thank you very much. That's great. And then you leave. And then you call later that day or the next day. You call John Smith. You go to the switchboard, they say, do you know the name of the person? You say, could you patch me through to John Smith? And either you leave a message or John Smith picks up and you say, hello, my name is X, whatever your name is, and I'm just following up to make sure you got my resume. I left my resume with the receptionist. I was just wondering if you had received it. And then hopefully they say yes, or they say no. It doesn't really matter. And you say, okay, well, listen, this is what I do. I'm great at this. I solve this problem. I know you guys do work in this area. I'd love to work for your company. If ever you're looking, please let me know. That's all. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day. That could be very effective because maybe you don't interview super well, or maybe you don't have the experience, or maybe you're changing careers, or maybe blah, 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 blah. You've just jumped to the front of the pile for any job that they have, either right now or in the near future. They'll come to you first because you have an advantage over every other candidate, and that is that they've met you and they think you're awesome. You're professional, you're polite, you've demonstrated you really want this job, you're dedicated, right? So you can make up your own rules. You don't have to go through the standard process. That's just one example. But I had students that did that and they got hired like that. Like they got hired over a lot of other people. Now, if you're an introvert and that sounds like the most horrifying thing in the world, that's fine, because that's certainly not the only way to do it. But that's just an example, like of a non-standard thing. Okay, this is from Brandon Ha, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I apologize. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Got ghosted on an internal application. And when I asked why I didn't even get a sorry, pick someone else email, I was faced with sarcasm. Ghosted me like I wasn't going to see them every day. That sounds like a typical, large organization. People that are unprofessional, people that have no communication skills. Right? Don't be influenced by those people. Don't end up thinking that that's an appropriate way to deal with people just because you're being treated like that, okay? It's not. The fact that you don't behave like that and you don't communicate like that, in some organizations, they'll hire you just based on that. You see, because you would then be a person that could talk to customers or suppliers or partners, some external entity to the organization. It's only in HR for some reason across the board that you get people like this dealing with external entities. In this case, candidates, potential employees. And that's a signal that they don't care about their employees. So all I can say is that they must have good compensation, keep you working in an environment like that. That's usually how it goes. Companies that treat people like this, they pay a premium because anyone that could get a job somewhere else will usually go somewhere else. The only way you can get people to stay is if you pay them a premium for having them being treated like this every day. Now, did you have a question? No, you didn't have a question. But no, that's a great story. I like that story because that's typical. There's a lot of people in that boat. I briefly went back to education. I found universities, and I found them like that's an environment where people act like this. They act like children in one sense, but then they act like jackasses on the other sense. It's really strange. It's like those people would never be able to work in the private sector. You communicate like that in the private sector a lot of times at most levels, and you're having to talk to the boss in a closed door office meeting about your communication immediately. Heidi says, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Really appreciate it. I became very positive and confident for tomorrow. Well, good. Look, listen, you always should be very positive and confident. Okay. Despite what anybody tells you, if you get rejected for anything or what, you're talented, you're valuable, you have skills. Rob says, I worked at KPMG at the manager level in the past. Okay, well, then you should have a lot of relatable work experience that comes with that brand recognition, basically. I mean, that's their competitor. Had 2 offers, select one of them. They canceled on the last day. Is it fine to contact the other company HR now? There's no harm in doing it. Yeah. Like, hopefully you didn't burn your bridges when telling them, sorry, I'm going with somebody else. Right? If you did it respectfully, professionally, it's like, thank you very much. I'm very flattered, blah, blah, blah. But something has come up and I can't accept at the moment, or I can't continue with this process. You approach them and you say, like, hello, it's me again. I've got good news. I'm now free to pursue this opportunity if it still is on the table. I thought I'd just inquire in case that was the what's going on, and then see what they say. Okay, and if the answer is no, just keep moving forward. Right? Don't do any hand wringing over it. Look, there's nothing else you could have done. You did the right thing. At some point in the process, if you get 2 options, you have to choose. And you know what I mean? So it's none of your doing. That's how it goes sometimes. Just keep moving forward. Always think of the next opportunity. But I wish you the best of luck with that existing opportunity. Asim Iqbal says, to clarify the question I asked, the interview went well for my full charge bookkeeping position. Went well, but I didn't have knowledge of QuickBooks. Was it good to be an intern? Let me try this again. To clarify the question I asked the interview went well for my full charge bookkeeping position. Went well, but I didn't have knowledge of QuickBooks. Was it good to be an intern? For the company, they didn't accept me as a bookkeeper. Okay, so you didn't get the bookkeeper thing. Was it good to be an intern? It doesn't hurt to ask to see if you can get the intern if that aligns with your goals. Usually an intern, they're not really making any money or much money. It's more for the experience. It's more for the intangibles. You get on the inside of a company. You make network connections. You get industry experience. You can get letters of recommendations and references and things like this. That's usually the value of being an intern. So if that's acceptable to you, sure, yeah. There's no harm in asking. You know, you can say like, look, I did apply for this and it didn't work out, but despite that, I still would like to work here if possible. And I understand there's an intern position open, or there might be an intern position open. If there is, I'd like to put myself forward for that. There's absolutely no harm in doing that. So yeah. Getting rejected makes mental distress. Yes, it does. It does. A lot of mental distress. Especially when you don't understand what's going on. A lot of people take it as a signal that they're of little value. They have no worth. People don't see their value. They think they have value, but other people see you as not having value. That's how a lot of people, especially young people, interpret it. That's not true. That's not an appraisal of what's going on. What's actually going on, like I said in the beginning, is it's a process that's the number one factor that influences the outcome is random chance. It's like rolling a dice. The second most important factor is not you, it's them and how they assess people. Okay? And then a distant third is kind of you, your interviewing skills, your communication skills, your charisma, and your resume. Right? That's a distant third in the factors that affect the outcome. And the other thing is that a lot of people don't realize is that there are so many employers out there, and there's so many types of employers that they all have different values. They all see value in different things. They all hire different ways. They all have different rules and different processes for how to hire. This is something I've seen over the course of my career. You get rejected for 1, 2, 3, 4 companies and you think that's it. That's all the employers that I'm qualified for. No, there's so many more that you're not aware of. I did a video that may be of help to some people. What was it called? It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. So if you go to YouTube and you go in the search box and type in the company's expert, How Successful People Get Jobs, check that out. That's another tool to find possible employers all around you. Okay? So check that out if you're having that problem. Touch of Fairy. I studied engineering, but I feel like not going for job related to what I studied in college. Listen, speaking as somebody who also got an engineering degree, engineering, if you have an engineering degree, or which is what I assume that you have, it shows that you're highly intelligent, highly capable, you've got a good work ethic, you're extremely trainable, you're very bright, you're very organized, you're very punctual. It shows you've got a ton of great abilities and traits. And there are companies that hire people for engineering, based on the fact you have an engineering degree, that don't do engineering. The first job I got right out of school was with General Electric, a million years ago. And they hired me, I guess, based on the fact that I had an engineering degree, but it wasn't for an engineering job. It was for a technical supervisor job. Right? And now, I was saying a moment ago about different companies with different values. These people had the idea that, okay, if you hire engineers, they're smart, they're trainable, they're capable, hire them in technical roles, hire them in supervisory roles, just hire a bunch of engineers. That's how that organization thought at that time. So as I said, it takes all kinds. And I ended up doing something I never even was aware of. I didn't even know that was an industry before. So, I mean, that's the thing. You can take advantage of different people's values, like if they place value on something and you happen to have that something, they'll see you and they'll go, you're qualified. You're the best one, right? Makes a nice change from applying for jobs, being interviewed, and then being told you're not the one selected a bunch of times, right? It's just people place value on different things. So keep pursuing opportunities. Don't just apply for jobs online. Also check out networking. Also check out other things. Okay? And you will stumble upon serendipitously, just you're here and the company's here and you just happen to come together. Random probability. They see you and they go, and then they hire you. Tarek says, "Hi, I am so stressful. I passed exams, but each time I cannot pass the interview stage." Yeah, that's common because the interview, like I was saying earlier, the interview has absolutely nothing to do with being qualified for a job. The interview is about you as a person. They already can see your qualifications by looking at your resume. They can see your education. They can see your experience. They can see your skills. All that's on the resume. Okay? Think of it this way. Okay? I've used this example before. You are moving to a new home. Okay? You used to live in, I don't know, one place like an apartment or something, and now you're moving to another apartment. You need to hire somebody to move all your stuff for you because you're not going to be there. Okay? Now, you then go about interviewing some people that have applied for that job of moving your stuff. Okay? Now, these people will produce a resume that shows that they're skilled in moving. They can pick things up. They can carry things. They can transport them by vehicle. Okay? Maybe they can use a forklift. I don't know. Right? But based on that, would you just hire somebody just by looking at their resume? No, you wouldn't, right? Because this is your stuff. If you hire the wrong person, they could be a criminal. They could be totally untrustworthy. They could be, they have a really bad attitude. They don't care about you or your stuff. They just want to get paid, right? So you want to meet them. You want to try and get to know who they are as a person, right? Maybe one candidate, it really feels like they have no interest in doing the actual job. They just need a job. Okay? And this is a job where they got to lift heavy things, so it might not be the most desirable job for them. They would rather work in an air-conditioned office all day. So you're probably going to reject that person because you don't really think they're going to do a great job for you. They're just not motivated, right? It is, and another person just seems like they're crazy, Another person, you meet them and they have no confidence whatsoever. You have to explain the process to them 5 times for them to understand it, right? So you're hiring based on what they're like as people, right? Because somebody could have the most brilliant resume in the world. They could be a genius, right? But if you can't work with them, maybe they're super argumentative and you can't tell them anything because they're always right. Even when they're wrong, they're always right. You can't work with them without getting into an argument, right? Or they just refuse to do anything that isn't their way, right? Or they just don't show up, right? They're unreliable. It doesn't matter how technically brilliant they are on paper. These are the aspects of it that have to be there, right? So that's what job interviews are really about. Okay, they're about that personal element. What's your motivation? Do you really enjoy this type of work? Or are you just taking the job because you need money? This kind of stuff. That's what the job interviews are about. So it's a completely different thing from being qualified for the job, right? And if you're young, if you're just starting out in life, to be useful, you have to have not only technical skills, but you also have to be a good worker, a good coworker. You have to be able to communicate with people. You have to be able to get along with people. If there's a dispute or a disagreement, you have to know how to resolve that properly, professionally, in a way that doesn't harm everybody's working relationships. Like, there's all kinds of soft skills involved, right? So a lot of job interviews, they're going to ask you questions mostly about that stuff. Okay? So if you're being rejected for jobs because you can't pass an interview, maybe that's the area for you to brush up on. Okay? It could be other things too, but that's one area. So if you've never considered that aspect of employment, or you're just not really working on that or thinking of it, that's maybe something to think of. I did jot down some notes of what to talk about. I haven't even gotten to 3/4 of them yet. Jack says, "Good afternoon, Bill. I work 2 jobs. I'm trying to go into the business development center of auto dealership. I get rejected because my jobs were in retail and call centers. Any tips?" Listen, what little I know of auto dealerships is integrity is not a great priority of theirs. That's just my personal experience. Be prepared for that if that's where you want to go. I've dealt with many auto dealerships, not as my job, but just, in my personal life. And I've heard a lot of stories from friends and things. And that's something that always seems to be the constant, is that, there's a lot of odd things going on. Signatures being forged, lies and scams, and even internally, people are kind of pulling weird tricks on each other and stuff, so just make sure that's in that kind of environment you're comfortable with and you're okay. And sorry if that's a little bit of a downer, but that's just been my personal experience. Real estate is kind of like that too. Real estate and construction are, there's a lot of odd things that sometimes go on. I'm from Miami, Florida. Miami. Well, that's the place to go to a beach, right? And the place for sunshine. Although some of the weather can be a little interesting. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. Joshua, I think Asim Iqbal wants to know if it's fine to go for an intern position instead after being passed for an interview in the same organization because he doesn't seem to have a particular knowledge requirement. Yes, that's what I eventually got. Yes, that's what I was responding to. Precisely that situation. But thanks for helping. You're welcome, Touch of Fairy. Touch of Fairy, do you have maybe I shouldn't ask, but the obvious question is, I'm wondering if you have a wand or wings. Just go boof, and then you get a job. That would be pretty cool. We should talk if that's what you do have. Min says, "Sorry for being late, sir. I was doing homework and just finished." Hey, don't apologize. I'm glad you're here. Joshua, you're doing awesome. Okay, don't worry about it. It's good to see people participating like that and helping out. Same to Johnny Walker. Chris Bell, would you classify being an editor for video as an actual job? Well, let me ask you something. Do you make money? can one make money doing that? I think the answer is yes. So yeah, it's a real job. It's an actual job. It's more of, I mean, without really knowing the details of that, I'm not an editor myself, but it seems to me, I get the vibe that it's more of an entrepreneurial type thing. You're sort of, rather than getting a job in an organization doing that, instead, you're sort of being an independent entity, right? Perhaps doing contract work for other people, things like this. Okay. So to succeed at that, you should have some business skills. Anytime you're trying to do anything and money's involved, it's business. Okay, now Rumi's got a super chat. Congratulations, Rumi. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm glad somebody gave me a super chat just for the level of dedication. Now, Rumi says, how to handle. I had to sue a federal agency over a 4.5-year denial of no-cost medical accommodation. The judge sided with me in summary judgment. I received a favorable settlement. How do I address this in interviews? Now, I'm assuming you're in the United States. I'm not in the United States, so my understanding of the American health insurance system and medical insurance is a little bit. I mean, it's not my country, so I'm not a genius at it. But my gut reaction to this is that, first of all, I would not bring it up. I would not advance any of this, okay, in a job interview. Because, once again, depending on how they think, okay, and American employers tend to be very, very risk averse when it comes to issues of accommodation and, like medical histories and stuff like that. I know there's cases where like they'll ask you questions and try to get a medical history from you, even though, as I understand it, you're under no obligations to disclose that information. They'll still try and get you to tell them, okay, certain aspects of it, because then what they do is they make an assessment. They say, this candidate has this issue, this medical issue in their past that puts them at a higher risk of perhaps, going on medical leave or something, or requiring accommodation. And in the United States, that's a cost that employers have to bear. It's not covered by the government, as I understand it. Where I am, that's all covered by the government, so it's not an issue. But in the States, they look at that and they will base hiring decisions based on their risk assessment of you on this type of stuff. So, number one, I would not volunteer it. If they ask you about it, okay, I would disclose as little as possible, okay, about this stuff. Now, I'm not sure. I mean, I know in the 50 states, they have different laws and rules about hiring practice. I think employment standards are regulated at a state level, to my knowledge. So each state is going to have their own sort of rules of what they can ask you and what they can't. So be familiar with those. A good thing to do is to go on Google, type in the name of your state, and then type in employment standards or employment law or employment rules. And at least in Canada and other countries where I've done this, the first thing that comes up is usually the actual law, the act, or whatever you call the legal document that governs like employment standards. And then you can read the law for yourself, and they'll be like, what they're allowed to ask you in interviews and what you have to disclose on request and things like this, and what you're not allowed to disclose. There's no obligation to disclose. So just be familiar with that. And then if they're not allowed to ask it, I would say that's, I don't reveal personal confidential details like my medical history. I'm sure you understand. I also believe there's no requirement for me to have to do that. So I just like to keep things professional and not disclose it. I would do my best to avoid it. Okay. And then if I had no choice but to talk about it, they asked a direct question. I would skip to the result. Okay? So, which in your case was a favorable settlement. Okay? So I wouldn't mention having to sue anyone. I wouldn't mention the fact that they denied your claim originally and then you had to bring them to court. I wouldn't mention any of the conflict if you could possibly get away with it. I'll just say I had this medical issue and it was accommodated. Okay? Because that's one potential negative. The fact that you have like a medical issue or you had one in the past. Okay? You want to try and avoid that, disclosing that. Okay? That's one thing. But then on top of that, the fact that there was a point of contention and then there was a litigation to resolve it, that's another thing you don't want to reveal because it signals that you're a potentially combative, litigious type person who gets into conflicts with their employer and takes them to task. So, you know, if they really put you on the spot about the medical thing, I would just talk about the outcome of the medical thing. And hopefully you don't have to disclose that there was any litigation or any dispute. Okay. So that's how I would handle it. Okay. I would try my best to not disclose either of those. And if you're really put in a hard spot and it is legal for them to ask this stuff and you have to answer, I would just disclose medical. I wouldn't disclose conflict. Okay, that's how I would do it. But if you really want to know, I mean, the best thing, obviously, if you have the opportunity, is wherever you are in your particular region, talk to a lawyer that is like an employment lawyer or HR lawyer, someone that knows the employment laws, someone that does medical accommodation, or, you know, I mean, I'm not sure the title of the role in the United States, but someone who does this on a 9-to-5 basis. Ask them a few questions and get the information right from the horse's mouth. You know, that's what I would do. Okay? If you really want to know how to handle that properly. If it keeps coming up, I would definitely do that. Even if you have to pay like, you know, $100 or, you know, like just someone for their time to answer a couple of questions, it would be worth it. So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you, Rumi, for the question. I hope I've helped somewhat with that. Naveed says, what would you recommend doing when you are qualified for the job but don't have the required recommended years of experience? Also, how would you avoid being lowballed in this situation? Well, that's a few questions. Well, the blanket solution to that is to get a job through networking. Because as I say, recruiters care about that kind of stuff. Like years of experience, that's what recruiters care about. It's because they don't know how to assess somebody, right? They don't have qualifications or experience in the roles that they're hiring for. Okay? One day they might be finding a candidate for an accounting job. The next day they might be trying to hire someone who's the best salesperson. I mean, they don't have any personal experience in these fields. So as a way of trying to compare candidates, they go off easy metrics like years of experience. A lot of people, like hiring managers who actually know about these positions, who understand what's needed and what the ingredients are to be good in these roles, they might take years of experience into account, but it's not a be-all, end-all for them like it is for recruiters, okay? So if you're dealing with recruiters and years of experience is an issue, I would go around the recruiters to the hiring manager. I would be proactive. I would contact them and do it that way. So basically you're going through networking. You know, I've got a course on that covers the entire thing right here, link in description, like I've said a couple times. So you can check out the link in the description. If that's of any use to you, I give scripts, I give like step-by-step procedures for how to do this. Okay. I also have some free videos on my YouTube channel that talks about how to do precisely this. So I check those out. Okay. I also have, if you're talking about salary, how to avoid being lowballed. I've got a ton of videos on the salary question and how that works. So check out some of those, including things I've released like last week. So check those out. You will always be lowballed. They will never throw money at you. They will try to get you for as little money as possible. Just like you do when you go to the store and you buy food. You try and get as good a deal as possible. You don't want to pay more than you have to for something. They behave exactly the same way. Right? So you will always be lowballed. The secret is to stay in the game long enough for them to see your value, fall in love with you, and then feel that you're worth more money. That's how you do it. Okay, so check out my videos on that. Okay, I'm going to have to start wrapping this up in about 5-10 minutes here. Rumi, my buddy Rumi again says, yes, I'm in the USA. Okay, yeah, it sounded like it. Medical accommodation, that was like USA. Kevin says, having finished a 30-year career in petroleum geology, if you are still in school, summer intern and join local industry groups, SW user groups, and social mixers. Why? The number one question they have about you is not technical. Are you a person who can work well with others? I don't fully understand that, but you're right about the number one question is, can you work well with others? Can you work well with them? That's what they're wondering. So if they like you, that's a big positive. If you click as people, like in an interview, you get along well and you seem to be on the same level, the communication is really good, that's a definite advantage. Okay? So being likable in job interviews is probably the single most effective thing you can do. If you want to add a skill, it's being likable, having charisma, being able to get along with different types of people, when you first meet them. Okay, that's like a huge advantage. Okay, JT does stuff with another super chat. Thank you so much. JT does stuff says, just wanted to say thank you for the work you do. My pleasure. My pleasure. Once again, there's 63 of you guys here right now. Thank you so much. That's why I persist with these live streams, because people are showing up. So thank you for being here. I hope that I'm adding value to people. And it's very nice to get that kind of feedback. So thank you. Heidi says, I've been interviewed so many times with this one big company for 5 different roles. Unfortunately, all the time after talking with the hiring manager, they never give me the answer whether it's and I guess it's cut off. Yeah, it's very frustrating, isn't it? And a lot of a common thing is that you never know. You never know what the issue is because they don't disclose. They don't give any feedback. And if they do, like I said, it's usually dishonest. They'll never tell the truth. Even I have, the reality is you can only hire one person for each role. You get a bunch of applicants and you'd love to hire several of them because you feel that several are really qualified and they'd be really good in it. But unfortunately, you can only hire one, and sometimes you can't provide a good reason why they didn't get it. It was just, sorry. You're perfectly qualified. We got along great, but I had to choose between you and somebody equally awesome. And it's just tough, well, I can only pick one person. And I just thought they had this and, you don't want to admit that because it's so flimsy, right? It's like any tiny little thing will tip the scales, right? As I said, it's random probability a lot of times, But as I say, if it goes on for an inordinate amount of time, you just keep getting rejected, and it's always kind of the same. Make sure that you're using more than one method to get a job. Okay, that's the key. Okay. Because as I say, if you're trying to say change careers or something, and all you do is you respond to job ads and deal with recruiters, you will almost never get hired. Like, you know what I mean? The way to do that would be through networking, right? So mix up your methods for getting a job. Don't just do one thing for a very long period of time. Do your own research into the different ways you can get jobs, and find one that works for you, for your personality and your situation and your industry and your career stage and like all that stuff, Light upon light. I have to wrap this up in like a couple of minutes, so I'll just take the next, like, say, 5 questions. I've been interviewed so many times with this one big company for 5 different roles. I already read that one. I have Sonru online interview tomorrow. Is there any tips you might give? Thanks. Yeah, check out, I have a playlist. If you go to my YouTube channel, under playlists, I've got a playlist called Get Hired. If you haven't seen those videos, watch those. They're designed sort of like, the essentials, what you need for interviews. So check those out. My pleasure, Rumi. My dream says, hey, my dream. And the clapping of hands. Okay, 3 more questions. When you've been with an organization for 6+ years and can't get a position I can use my university degree for, and keep getting told to stay patient and something will come my way, is it time to look? Let me try it again. When you've been with an organization for 6+ years and can't get a position I can use my university degree for, and keep getting told to stay patient and something will come my way, is it time to look? Listen, in the 70s, in the 80s, companies were expected to provide a long-term career. Once you got hired, like in the 70s, once you got hired, you're expected to be there for the rest of your career. That was typical. Okay? I mean, people still moved around, but a lot of people stayed in one place their entire career. And you had, in a lot of cases, more of a paternal role. The organization wouldn't lay you off at the drop of a hat. And in exchange, you would be loyal to the organization and try and do a good job. That came to an end in the 1970s. And ever since, gradually, as we went to the 80s, 90s, 2000s, the teens, and today, the trend has been for people to just have a direct exchange. Money for my time. You pay me money, I give you my time. And in that environment, promises about what could happen in the future, like opportunities for advancement, they don't really carry as much water anymore than they used to. Now, if you've already been waiting 6+ years or whatever it was, yeah, and they haven't made good on any kind of promise to you or expectation, maybe it's a psychological contract in the sense that they didn't actually promise you anything, but that was kind of what you were expecting. Yeah, look, the more options you have, the more power you have. And the better the outcome will be for you. Okay? If you're not 100% satisfied with your current employment situation, always be putting feelers out. Okay? And, depending on, like if you are miserable in your job, or you feel burned, or you feel betrayed, or you feel dissatisfaction from some other reason, channel that animosity and that dissatisfaction into your job search. It can be a constructive way of using that negative energy. So that's what I would say, Adam. And it's good to have you back, by the way. I know you were on some previous live streams of mine. Okay, just these last 3 outs. Okay, so Michael says, how to know it's because I asked for too much money? Well, you don't. You'll never get that feedback. Gabrielle says, hey, Bill, I hope you are having a good stream. I started my internship I start my internship in the next 2 weeks. Congratulations. That's great news. I hope it works out very well for you. Now, while you're there, don't just leave. Don't just get the experience, okay? Take advantage of being on the inside of that organization that's presumably in the industry you want to work in, okay? Get references. If you could leave with 1 or more letters of recommendation, that's great. If you could make friends among the people in there so that once your internship is over, you can call them up and say, hey, are you hiring? And they say, yes, we are. And you say, great, I'm looking. I'll be, okay, I'll put in a word, right? Okay. There's a lot of other things you can get from an internship rather than just the industry experience. Okay. So take advantage of all that stuff when you're there. Even if you're only there for like a little bit of time, get all that stuff. Thank you so much for adding value to my life. Really appreciate it. My pleasure, Heidi. I'm glad that you feel that way. I wish you all the best. And Shasha, last question, says, why do employers ghost after 7 interviews but seeing my salary slips of previous employments? Well, are you in India by any perchance? How the best answers to past salary details new potential employers ask for? Can they ask for old pay slips? Well, listen, that's going to vary depending on what country you're in. Where I am, no, they can't. But I know some other, I'm given to understand that in India, it's a common practice to do that. And the thing is, you're competing on price. It's just, it doesn't work to really prosper, It might make sense when you're starting out in your career if you have to work for sort of the rock bottom to get your foot in the door, get some experience, right? Then it makes sense, but you don't want to be doing that your entire career if possible, okay? Sometimes we have no choice, but it would be good to move beyond that, okay? For people to see your value and want to pay you for your value, okay? Rather than just lowballing you to the minimum possible. Okay. Okay. If you're asking about why they ghost you, but you suspect it's because of your pay slips or your salary, there's not much you can do about that. Look at alternate ways of getting jobs. It sounds like you're going in with the crowd, right? You're going in with 100 other candidates. A common way of filtering people out is to say, as the first question, how much money do you need? And then all the people that want a little bit more money, you just eliminate them on the spot. And then now you're dealing with the 20 or so candidates that said an absolute minimum amount of money. And then you select from that group, right? Okay. So if that's the situation you're in, you may have to do that in the beginning, possibly to get your foot in the door. But I would look at alternate means of getting a job. I would not go in with everyone else. I would do networking. I would do other things where there aren't any competitors for the job that you're putting yourself up for. They haven't posted a job yet. They know they have to hire someone, but they haven't started the process. You come along and you say, hey, if ever you're looking for someone, I'm your guy or girl, right? That way they think, hey, cool, we could save a lot of money, having to post this job and everyone has to sit through job interviews. Let's just check out this person first. If they can cut it, then let's just hire them and get on with it. It's cheaper, it's quicker, and it makes sense because if this person has a half-decent resume, they're obviously dedicated, they obviously have initiative, they're professional, they have some skills. That works for me, right? That's how a lot of organizations think, especially about lower level jobs. Because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who they hire as long as they hire someone who can do the job and follow instructions. That's all they're looking for. And who's not going to be a problem. You know, there are many people that qualify for that, right? Okay. So there you go. So I have to wrap this up now. I'm just going to end by saying a couple of quick things that I had written down that address the central issue about being rejected for a job, if that's you. Okay. What can you do if you're in this situation? Okay. First of all, number one, if you're at the point where you're having mental health issues, like that's where it's going. Okay. Just stop for a second, take a moment, try to do something fun, even if only for a moment. Okay. Because that's important, okay? This is a very tough challenge to go through, especially for a lot of younger people. And, that's the first thing you got to remember. This process is mainly based on luck. It's also a numbers game, okay? So the more opportunities you pursue, the more likely you will be hired and the quicker you will be hired, okay? There are many different ways to get a job. Don't just use one method, okay? The most obvious thing is if you are only responding to job ads with applications, look at networking. 75% of people who get jobs get it through networking. Okay, so check out networking. It's very effective. It's also a way to solve a lot of problems with the recruiter process, with the standard channels. Okay. So for a variety of reasons, check out networking. Okay. That's basically it. Everyone needs to know you have value, you are employable, and out there's an employer that could use you. You just need to connect with that employer. You need to find them and connect with them. Okay, that's what's happening here. Over here, they're looking for someone like you. You're over here, right? Thinking no one can hire me. They're over here looking for someone like you. You just got to connect, okay? Take a moment, take care of yourself, do some research, check out my channel, check out other people's channels, and do some research on the internet, learn about alternate ways of getting jobs, brush up on your interpersonal skills, communication skills, how likable you are, how charismatic you are. Work on those. Especially if you're a technical type person. This stuff is child's play compared to learning engineering or anything like that. Accounting, it really is, okay? So if you got the technical chops, you can do this. And the world is your oyster. Thank you very much for being here with me today. I hope that you will join me again. I'm doing these live streams every Sunday and every Wednesday at this time. And I'm archiving these on my second channel, The Company's Expert 2. So go over there and subscribe. And if you've watched my videos and you've seen a lot of those and you still want more, check out my course that I was kind of mentioning earlier, this one here, okay? How to get hired. If you want to learn business, if you want to be self-employed and make money that way, a couple of people in the chat today were asking about that. I have this course here, the $100 MBA. You learn everything that you would learn in an actual brick and mortar MBA from a university. You're using the same textbooks as they are, okay? However, this is completely self-study. You do it all yourself. You read the books yourself. You learn the material yourself on your own time, your own schedule, and to the depth that you want. There are no tests, no evaluations, no projects, no assignments, okay? It's unaccredited because of that, because I have no way of verifying if you've learned anything. But that's the advantage and that's the purpose. It's so that you can learn what you want to the depth you want on your own terms. If you want to be self-employed, in my opinion, that's the thing to do. And it's a lot more bang for the buck than spending 2 years and, $10,000 American to get a full-blown MBA. Okay, so if that's of any use, check that out. Other than that, thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome, and I will see you on the next live stream. Take care.